When going out for afternoon tea, you may have your tea poured from a lovely china teapot, a sterling silver set, or even a glass teapot. But which is most efficient for keeping tea hot? Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Sonia, and I'm awfully glad you're here. I stumbled upon a Q&A thread the other day where someone posed the question, which keeps the tea hottest, china or silver teapots? Well, as you can imagine, there were a number of answers, many good arguments for both, actually. So it made me wonder, what is the right answer? So I thought I would do an official test, albeit unscientific, to arrive at a definitive answer. And just for good measure, since I have one, I thought I would throw a glass teapot in the mix as well. Now, all three of these pots are fairly close in size. The ceramic is probably porcelain, but since porcelain and bone china are said to retain heat equally well, I'm going to let it stand in for china in general. Now, the silver pot is vintage silver plate, which if you have a silver tea set, that's probably what you have. Unless you're lucky enough to have a solid silver set, which if that's the case, ooh, good for you. And finally, the glass pot is the kind which can stand really high heat, including on the stovetop, so it's quite sturdy. I'm going to bring the water to a boil, and to be completely fair, I'll test each teapot individually, one at a time, so the water has no chance to cool down with multiple pours down the line. Now, after the water is boiled, I will pour some into the teapot to warm it, as I would do if I were making tea, and then I'll fill the teapot and wait 5 minutes, typical steep time. Now, after 5 minutes, I'll pour the water into a bone china teacup and immediately take the temperature for the first pour. Then I'll wait 5 minutes and take the temperature of a second pour to see how we're doing. And then after another 15 minutes, I'll pour a final cup and get that temperature reading. So, porcelain pot first. So to begin, I've got the tea kettle, teapot, cup and saucer, a timer, and thermometer. And I have put the teapot and teacup on a tea towel, so to sort of stand in for a tablecloth that you might have, because this granite countertop is very cold, so I didn't want to adjust the temperature that way or impact the temperature that way. I'm just going to warm the pot a bit. Just what I would do if I were making tea. And now fill it. Set the timer for 5 minutes. Steep time. All right, our 5 minutes is up. Time for our first pour. And testing of our temperature. I'll be taking the highest temperature that pops up because this temperature probe doesn't stay fixed on a number. It changes as the water cools. So in this case, 171. Let's go again. Another 5 minutes. Let's see how it's doing. All right, been another 5 minutes. Let's see how we're doing. Temperature probe. Looks like 161 is our top temperature. It's dropping, but it would. And now we'll try a full 15 minutes and see how well we do. All right, it's been 15 minutes since our last pour, a full 25 minutes since freshly boiled water was poured into the teapot. So, final test. I think I saw it hit 135, so I will go with that. All right, time for our silver pot now, and a new teacup. All right. First, warm the teapot. Then fill it. We're going to set our steep time for 5 minutes. All right. Okay, first 5 minutes. Steeping would be over. Let's pour our first cup. I saw it initially hit 176. All right, now time for the second pour after 5 minutes. See how we do. I saw it hit 167 in the water. 167 is what I'm going to go with. And now we'll do our last 15-minute trial. See how our water continues to cool down in the silver teapot. All right, 15 minutes after the last pour and 25 minutes since boiling water was poured in the teapot. Let's see how our silver teapot has done. 139 is what I saw first. Okay. Now, on to the glass teapot. I'm going to set the timer for a 5-minute steep. All right, there's our first bit, so let's do our first pour and see how our temperature is. 175. That's what I got initially. All right, let's set another 5 minutes. All right, time for our second pour after 5 minutes. And I hope you can see this probe. I know it's camera-wise, it's a little difficult. 165. Yep, 165. All right, now 15 minutes. And finally, that is our last temperature test on our last teapot, 15 minutes after the last pour, 25 minutes from when boiling water went into the teapot. I got a 130, 129, 127, keeps going down, of course, as it would, but 130 I saw first. So we'll go with that. Now, let's compare. So as you can see on the first pour, all 3 teapots hovered in the 170s with silver and glass doing the best. Now I am talking Fahrenheit, but you can see Celsius written next to it. On the second pour, the water cooled to the 160s. Again, silver and glass doing the best. But on the final pour, the ceramic pot pulled ahead of glass. But the big winner was the silver teapot all the way, with ceramic and glass in close competition for second place. Now, if that's what you still prefer to use, or if that's all you have, don't feel compelled to rush out and buy something else. There are a couple of really effective things you can do to keep your tea hot no matter what material your teapot is made of. One of the most effective ways to keep tea hot on your table is by using one of these little tea warmers. Now you just use a little candle like this. It's called a tea light candle, appropriately named. And you just put it inside, light it, set your teapot on top, and it will keep your tea hot for hours, because even though that's little candle is very small, it will last 4 or 5 hours. Certainly good for an afternoon. They also have these, if an open flame is not something you want to have on your tea table, they also have what looks like a mug warmer, only it has a little larger plate to it. It's like a hot plate, if you will. Plugs in, does the same thing. It just keeps that medium temperature the whole time it's plugged in. Be sure if you buy one, and I will link one or two in the description box below if you're interested in purchasing one. Be sure that the plate is for a full-size teapot and not just a mug size, because a mug size is going to be too small. Some teapots won't even fit on top of it. So just make sure it has a nice, flat, large plate that your teapot would sit on. Another thing that is tried and true and has been since the Victorian days and possibly before that is a tea cozy. Tea cozies work wonderfully. Fits over the teapot, keeps it nice and warm during your afternoon tea, and when you're ready, you just lift it off and pour and put it back. It's a great choice. Now, any one of these methods will keep your tea nice and hot, or at least consistently warm, until you're ready to make another pot. Now, how critical is this? Well, in the long run, not terribly. There wasn't a great deal of difference among the teapots when we tested them. And truly, one of the most important things about afternoon tea is spending time with your friends. Here's my best example. Many years ago, I still was fairly new to hosting teas, and I had some friends over, and I was up and down and back and forth in the kitchen, in the dining room, back and forth, making sure the tea was hot, making sure we had plenty of water, extra boiled water, making sure the scones were baked and served warm. I mean, I looked more like the hostess of a tea room than hosting my own home afternoon tea. Until one friend finally said, "Sonia, sit down." So remember, you don't want to be so caught up in the ups and downs of fixing and preparing that you miss out on the precious time spent with friends. I hope you liked this video. If you did, hit that like button to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more afternoon tea videos. Until next time, bye-bye.